Hello, my name is Tara Kachataroff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today we have as our special guest Linda Booth, who's the founder and president of Deaf and Hearing Impaired Services. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm really excited about having you on the show today because of the work you're doing and of helping so many people around Michigan, and a very, very interesting business model too of getting help services for the deaf and hearing impaired out to people who most need it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how your business came to be, or your background and how it led up to starting your company?
Oh, it's kind of a long, exciting story. My mom started the business in the basement of my home growing up in Detroit. My grandparents are deaf, and so all of their friends were coming to the house needing an interpreter for a variety of reasons. And then after a while, my mom realized that there were grant opportunities, and in 1973, she contacted the Area Agency on Aging 1B, and they gave funding for interpreting services and services to deaf and hard of hearing. So she got her first grant and started the business that way. And so she was serving, all over Southeast Michigan, and she needed some assistance. So I came in much later after her associate director passed away. I came in to help. I was a school teacher in Bloomfield Hills, actually.
Oh.
And I came in to assist over the summer, and I stayed. And my mom shortly retired afterwards. And then we had merged with another group, and it didn't work out. So 20 years ago, I started all over again.
Oh, wow.
On my dining room table. I left everything my mother had worked for, actually computers and money. We couldn't afford a legal separation, so we just walked out and gave our resignation and started all over 20 years ago. And within a year, I had all my grants back, and we were fully funded, and it was meant to be.
So this business grew out of a need from when she was growing up with her own parents.
Right,
That's
right.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, did your mom ever dream of having her own business, or or did it just evolve as like?
It just evolved out of the need, with both my grandparents being profoundly deaf. My grandfather was born deaf. He has 4 deaf brothers. And my grandmother was born hearing and became deaf at age 3 from spinal meningitis.
Oh,
So they needed interpreters themselves, and of course their friends would come. Well, the word got out, and soon she was serving deaf and deaf-blind, and those with multiple disabilities, including the deafness. And she would go to Social Security or to Department of Social Services at the time to assist them in getting services. It was like the communication link. And that was back, there weren't really laws that supported it.
Right.
When the Americans with Disabilities Act passed in 1990, that really put a bite in it, so that there was a mandate now, and there were penalties if you didn't
When
concur.
you think about that, 1990 is not that long ago.
I know.
And you think like all that time, how did people managed? And they did with great difficulty, or you just couldn't participate in a lot of things in society that nowadays you can.
Right,
Also because of technology.
right. And as the need became identified, of course, then the profession developed, the sign language profession. So colleges and
Like
university,
OCC.
like
Yeah,
Oakland Community
they have
College, the 5 campuses, and Madonna University started interpreter training programs, Mott Community College in Flint, Lansing Community College as well. And so that started developing the profession. And so it grew out of the need of deaf consumers.
It's actually amazing that that need was not filled at a earlier time by, and thank goodness for ADA, because for so many reasons.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. It's changed a lot of, how, things are constructed, whereas before, was a different situation. It was quite a different
Exactly
situation.
right. I mean, there were so many atrocities.
I was on a campus because it was pre that time period where they didn't have the facilities for people with disabilities, and I had, you know, friends with disabilities, and it was hard to get around, and especially in Colorado with snow and not having ramps and having to do stairs with crutches, and you know what I mean?
Very difficult.
Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious.
Very difficult.
Yeah. Now
So
all that's changed.
those atrocities that happened where, in the very beginning, deaf were not allowed to drive. They were not permitted to drive. They didn't have the right to drive. And one of the deaf seniors that I worked with, that my mom had worked with years ago, was the first in the state of Michigan to get a driver's license.
Wow.
Now, he has long passed away. But actually, deaf people are better drivers on an average than hearing people because they use their eyes more and they're not distracted with conversation and radio and so on.
And all the other things nowadays.
Yeah.
Now, can you share, there's some statistics I was reviewing in some of the material, where Michigan ranks in terms of the deaf population and to the number of interpreters. Can you talk a little bit about those statistics? And I mean, I found them a little bit alarming.
It is. It is.
I was shocked.
Certainly. Michigan actually is 7th in deaf population of the 50 states. So we have a large deaf population. And people have always asked me, why?
Why is that? Is it because we're a large metropolitan area, or is it because of industry that perhaps influenced that?
Industry influenced it. The car companies hired the deaf, and many of them were used on assembly lines where there was a lot of noise, so there wasn't a problem with you know, any dangerous environmental situation where they would lose hearing. So it was partly that, and newspapers, you know, the Detroit News, Free Press, they worked there as well. So that drew them here to Michigan. So we are 7th. I think now we may be 8th in deaf population of the 50 states. But the problem is we are only 47th in interpreters.
Why is that?
Of the 50 states.
Why is that with all the programs we have and this and that? Is it just is there a lack of funding?
It's interpreter training programs and getting those students who take those sign language studies programs, interpreter training programs, to get them to pass the state test, the certification test.
We've had some of those interpreters in some of my classes because we've had some deaf students, and it's a lot of work to go through a whole lecture, and I mean, that's, my goodness, you know, try doing that at college all day, 8 hours a day.
Definitely, and there's a fatigue factor. After 2 hours of signing, you're actually using 2 languages at one time, so you're signing, and you're listening. You're listening in English, you're encoding and decoding, and then putting it out in American Sign Language. And American Sign Language is the 4th most used language in the United States.
American Sign Language?
Right.
Oh my goodness, that's fascinating.
Yes, and it's not universal, you know, but many of the countries who English-speaking foreign countries would use American Sign, but no, there's like Chinese Sign Language, Vietnamese Sign Language. But many of the signs we can understand them because they're iconic. They look like what they are, like drive or rain. It's the same here as it would be in Hong Kong. You know? But it's a beautiful language, and many students go into it. But like any foreign language program, it's challenging, and so it's not, I just want to do that thing on the hands.
I remember buying that first book that everybody started with, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's that one that everybody had in college like 30 years ago.
Yeah, like The Joy of Signing, I think.
Yeah, that one. And I could only kind of get through the alphabet. It's quite rigorous, but my roommate at the time was taking American Sign Language, so at University of Denver. That is fascinating. So they're ranking 48th here in Michigan in terms of interpreters. What are you doing in terms of your business to connect people, let's say, who need these resources with interpreters. Like how many, what is your business structure in terms of how does that look?
Okay, well, we have about 65 subcontracted interpreters we work with, and we cover Southeast Michigan. But because of the shortage, we have been being in demand outside of Southeast Michigan, and we try our best to service that. All agencies have a 2-hour minimum, so we charge 2 hours. For even a 1-hour assignment,
Right.
but it's hard to get someone to go to work for an hour, so
Right.
we do 2-hour minimums. That's industry standard, and a travel fee, and so they can earn a good living at interpreting. They can do several assignments per day, or if they're in the schools, they're doing 7.5 hours a day.
Right. Now, are you primarily placing people in agencies and schools and things like that, or do you ever, are there ever individuals who may come to you for something specific? Let's say somebody is handling a legal matter, or they're doing something with their business and they need to make sure that everything is, they're understanding everything correctly. Do you also work with the public directly, like business
Right.
to consumer?
That's mainly what we do.
Okay.
Although we have interpreters in certain school districts, and we have the contract with Oakland Community College. We provide interpreters for all 5 campuses. Also, Wayne County Community College, all 5 campuses, and we're in Schoolcraft and other schools, public schools. But generally, our day-to-day is working to provide the deaf consumer with communication linkage to public services. So if they have to go to the doctor, they will tell their doctor, please call Deaf and Hearing Impaired Services. I need an interpreter.
I see.
I'm going to be having, a physical exam next week. And so that's the bulk of what we do, is providing the communication linkage with hospitals, doctors' offices, courts, social service departments, and so on. And they call us directly, not so much the deaf consumer, but the actual vendor, the what they call the appointing authority.
So like would a hospital, like for example, Beaumont,
Yes.
contact? Okay.
Yeah, they would contact
They would-
us.
okay.
So we have a contract with Henry Ford. Henry Ford contacts us for all their hospitals and their clinics, and they contract with other agencies as well. And same thing with Oakwood and Beaumont, Crittenden. And they make a call, and because there's a shortage, they have to contact several agencies because we're extremely busy, and we really hate to turn anyone down. But we'll say we'll work on it, especially last minute for medicals. You know
Right.
how that can happen,
Right.
where there's a baby that's sick, and the deaf mother has to get the baby in right away. And so we are really known for a great response time, a quick response time in getting interpreters there.
I don't think people, especially because like I can hear, like people who can hear don't realize there's a whole nother world out there of people
Right.
who have that disconnect from many of the things we just take for granted. I mean,
Right.
it's
It's amazing. A lot of people think of deafness as just a matter of volume. If you're just loud enough, they'll get it. But we work with people who are completely deaf, profoundly deaf, and so American Sign Language is their main language. So interestingly, we had worked with a veterinarian who had a deaf person that brought in their dog, and he wanted to know if the dog could bark, because he couldn't hear if the dog barked. He thought he
I
might be
see.
sick.
I see.
So, so we're in a variety
Yeah.
of settings. We do fun things too. I mean, we interpret for students in taking soccer or football, horseback riding lessons, ice skating lessons, swimming. We haven't done skydiving yet, but
So your folks, your interpreters are getting a full range of
they do.
adventures
They
along with this.
do, and when they do a wedding, they
Oh my
really
gosh,
feel
a
like they
wedding. Can you
married the
imagine?
couple because they're
Oh.
deaf. They watch the interpreter signing. I
that
now
brings tears
pronounce
to
you
my
man
eyes.
and wife. Yes,
Oh my
and so
goodness.
they have that wonderful experience of taking these
Oh, yeah.
classes and interpreting in a variety of settings, and it has its great benefits for them as well.
That's beautiful. That's so neat. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And I guess even, you know, you may have probably had it where maybe somebody's having a baby and the whole, here's
We
the
go
new
through
baby,
all of that.
and you get to celebrate with them.
Yeah, and we try to give the same interpreter to
Yeah,
the young
so they
deaf
can follow
mother. They follow
along.
through all the prenatal, and then they're actually there for the delivery. So
That's neat.
a lot of times the deaf person feels they delivered that baby
Right.
because they were right there. So
Oh my
it's an
goodness.
exciting profession.
Wow.
And we have wonderful interpreters that really are involved in their profession. Even with their continuing ed units, they stay right up on all the latest signs and methods.
Do you do any education yourself within your company, or is that all done, you know, by the different schools around here and things like that? Do you do anything extra for the people who work for you in terms of additional
We
education
have had
programs?
in-house workshops, but we sponsor a lot of workshops too, where we bring people from out of state that will put on a medical workshop or a legal workshop. And of course, we really highly support our interpreters to taking their continuing ed units and have even paid for them. You know, we allow a stipend each year for continuing ed units.
Now, do you have an intern program for people that are coming out of some of these colleges? Can they come and get some, you know, real life practice? I know they do a lot of that probably in their training, but
Right.
do they have that opportunity with your company to do that as well?
Yes, we're really one of the only agencies in Southeast Michigan that has daily services for deaf and hard of hearing through a satellite site program.
Oh, what's that?
And so we're funded through the Area Agency on Aging, 1B, which covers 6 counties, Detroit Area Agency on Aging, and the Senior Alliance, which is all the downriver areas. So we have satellite sites located within senior centers and churches where deaf people come for group education and individual client assistance. And I have an interpreter at each site, and so we might have 30, 40, 50 people, and so students who are studying to become interpreters need to do observation hours and some participation. So we do have student internship programs where the colleges contact us and they say, you know, we need so-and-so to have so many hours with you, can you supervise them? So, yes.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
really
so
interesting.
it's kind of like on the job
training.
training. Yeah.
I have a question to ask you, and this has to do with technology and the fact that, you know, we all, you know, we use so many computers and to do our work and this and that. Do you ever have situations where, I mean, I know much material can be delivered through, you know, reading the written word, so people could read that potentially. But are there ever instances where maybe somebody has to attend some sort of a lecture or something that's on, you know, where it's audio, but that you can hook up the interpreter so that they can actually see them signing maybe in a little window inside on the computer screen while they're supposedly listening to the lecture, but they're actually reading the signs?
Yes,
you
and
have that?
sometimes we actually send the interpreter to that lecture, and they
Okay.
sit right in on the lecture with the student or the deaf consumer, and there might be lectures hospitals have,
Okay.
and then we'll send an interpreter there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that's one way. Sometimes they want to attend a workshop that's out of state, and then they would use video relay, which is the technology maybe you were referring to, where they can sign up for that program, and then they have an out-of-state interpreter on screen.
Okay,
and-
because I didn't know what they had, but I thought they
Right.
must have something because of how. Okay, so they can do it that way.
Right.
Could they also get that like on their iPhone? Could they see it that way?
Yes,
So
they can do
take it-
that.
okay.
And they've done job interviews that way as
Oh,
well.
really? Oh, neat.
Yeah,
Wow.
it really is.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, technology is fantastic.
That's fantastic.
And they still need the interpreter, you know,
Right.
they have the technology, but somewhere she's in the screen, so they get the communication access, which is wonderful. So they have clear access to all of that communication.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So in these 20 years of growing this company and, you know, still growing it, I'm sure, as you're
Yeah.
adding more people to it. What's been like one of the biggest challenges for you?
Well, like we were talking about, getting enough interpreters.
Just interpreters,
Yeah,
it's the
because there's
staff.
this shortage. Michigan, because we have this large, deaf population, we really have, we should have at least 3 times the amount. We have about 500 interpreters in the whole state, if that at this point. And Illinois, Illinois is similar in deaf population as Michigan, and they have over 1,500. So we have to do something. The educational system is tweaking their curriculums to get their students to pass certification, and then the state that provides the testing needs to also put more information out there on how to prepare for those tests, because currently the testing has a 47% failure rate.
It's like the CPA exam.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's,
Wow.
and then you have to
That's-
wait 6 months before you can
take
take
it
it again. And so that's one of the challenges
down.
that the interpreters have,
Wow.
which makes it a challenge for agencies like mine to provide interpreters for last minute assignments and so on.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, as an interpreter, is that like a licensed profession then?
Well, it's a certification. It's not a
certification,
licensure, but
okay.
it's a certification. They have to take an English test and pass that.
Is it guided through the state of
Through
Michigan?
the state of Michigan,
Okay.
the Division on Deaf and Hard of Hearing, they
Okay.
provide the English proficiency test, and they have to pass that first. That is the gateway to taking the performance test, which is in American Sign Language. And so there are 3 levels, and everyone, regardless of experience, they could be interpreting for 25 years, they still have to start at level 1. And then you have to wait 6 months to take it again.
I see.
So
And
it's a
s-
challenge.
And so the programs that are out, like the community colleges, are those 2-year AAs, does that prepare them to go in to take the exam?
They
or not
can,
enough?
I think they could if those students got enough internship hours. They
hours, yeah.
really need to be with the community and then with the deaf population
Right.
to get confidence, have confidence in their skills, because signing is one thing, but reading someone sign is different, because everyone has a different style, and there are challenges. Some deaf people have fingers missing. Some sign fast. We have seniors with arthritis that can't open their hands as much.
Yeah.
We have little children with tiny little hands. So
So
it's
you can't
all
really see what they're
yeah.
signing.
So
Yeah.
it is a challenge for them. But they are producing new interpreters. We just would like it at a faster rate.
It's interesting the difference between like Michigan versus Illinois. That's
Right.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's also a concern because so much of the population from Michigan, as they get out of school, they keep leaving. It's still happening.
Exactly.
And so there's less and less people around to go into these things and stay here.
Right, and then when we have Ohio right across the border that doesn't require certification.
Oh, really?
They
Oh, I
encourage
see.
national certification, which many of our interpreters have, but they don't mandate that you have certification. They look at experience. So we have lost some to Ohio.
I see. Approximately how many do they have in Ohio? Do you know?
I don't. I'd have to look up my statistics.
What in terms of the state with the most deaf and hearing impaired population, which state would that be? Is it New York, California?
I'm probably one of those
One of
with
those
the
with
higher
highest population.
populations.
That's unbelievable. Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
So we still have a couple minutes left. I want to just ask you one question here. What are you most proud of what you've done here in the 20 years of growing this company and starting over and
Well,
building
it was
up?
setting up these satellite sites so deaf from their own community
Have a
would
place
not
to
have
go.
to travel very far to get interpreting services, so they could be linked to any community-based service. And that was one of the great successes, and we did receive an award for that, for the most innovative and unique program from the Area Agency on Aging 1B.
Now, do you have to every year do you have to try to seek funding for what you're doing, or how do you get the funding to do what you do?
There is a
whole
RFP,
process?
a request
Okay.
for proposal process.
So
and,
every year?
some of them are multi-year funded
Okay.
for 3 years,
Oh, that's
but
good.
every 3 years, area agency puts out an RFP, and then others it's yearly. But
And those are like very specialized types of things to fill out, right?
Very,
You have to
very
have like a
time-consuming.
specialist
Yeah.
to do them because they're government forms and trying to get some earmarked funds to
Right.
keep this going, because it comes out of, I guess, our tax dollars.
Right,
Essentially, will end up funding these things for the community.
Yeah, getting the funding for it. Now, for the interpreting at the doctor's office or
Right.
the hospitals,
That's
we can
different.
bill them directly
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
So that's third-party billing.
Is that covered by insurance?
No.
It isn't
I,
covered
I
by
think,
insurance? That's
as far
very
as I know,
sad.
HAP covers
Okay.
for interpreting.
But not all of, wow.
No,
That's hard to
no.
believe. 'Cause
It
it's
is.
a necessary,
Right.
necessary situation.
Yeah, I'm on the Coalition for Michigan Deaf and Hard of Hearing agencies, and we've tried to get like a provider code for Medicare and Medicaid, but have not been
That's
successful for
alarming
that.
to me, actually. So I know we just have a minute left, and this has just been a fascinating interview. I've really enjoyed learning about this, such an important part of helping people in Michigan to live lives, full lives like we get to live because we can hear.
Right.
We don't have that issue. What is your advice to entrepreneurs, given that you are one from the very start?
Oh, I guess just think positive and don't let anything destroy your passion, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, but when you're passionate about what you believe, the time flies by and the effort seems almost meaningless because you're enjoying what you're doing.
Well, I really enjoyed this interview with you, and it really flew by.
It did.
I want to
Thank
thank
you for
you,
having me.
Linda Booth, founder and president of Deaf and Hearing Impaired Services. Thank you for being a guest on the program today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at www.michiganentrepreneurtv.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.